Hey everybody, good morning-ish. I'm excited to have Maria Mileder, Global Head of Innovation at PayPal on the show today. Welcome to Think Business, and welcome to Monday. What a weekend. Hard to believe it's February. Maria is Global Innovation. Hello?
Can you hear me?
That's never happened to me before, ever.
I'm so sorry. Of course, I'll be the first.
Hey, no worries. Wait, so I'm wondering if we should just start. No, we'll just take it from here. Well, the first 2 minutes is black. Is black. All right. Well, we'll figure it out. Wait, Maria, great to see you. Sorry about that technical piece. That's never happened to me before. All right. So, Maria Mileder, welcome to Global Head of Innovation at PayPal, again. Responsible for furthering PayPal's culture of innovation by way of enabling, connecting, and facilitating, promoting PayPal employees. And so, Maria, I want to dive into what innovation means today, because I think, COVID hit, which is almost hard to believe, a year ago. And, what innovation meant and what it means today for companies. I want to talk about PayPal, but I think just kind of zooming out, and I think you are a pillar of leadership when it comes to innovation. But how should companies in general be thinking about innovation today versus a year ago, February, today?
Absolutely. And thanks so much for having me, John. Yeah. And hopefully it won't drop one more time.
Yeah, thank you.
That's the world we live in. Right. So I think, let me start from what innovation is to me in general anyway, but also some of the additional elements that are under the innovation umbrella, because it's a buzzword, but I think there's like 50,000 different explanations and definitions. I think to me, in general, innovation is all about connecting dots that you never thought would actually work and creating something new. Like a super short description is you might not know what the outcome is. You absorb, you think, you reflect, and ultimately this is the aha moment people think about, that wow moment people think about, is generally based on all the things you absorb, who you are, the environment you're in, and when I say environment, that kind of brings me to kind of a COVID response, and where most of us found it in ourselves is sometimes that's elevated by crisis like the pandemic, like wars, whatever the case may be. And of course, you go in hyperdrive. it's not necessarily overly different, in my opinion, to the original process. It's just that you trying to push more and more. But you also see, and for example, in PayPal, that was the case, the actual circles of teams that would originally be responsible for one topic, they would go into all sorts of other disciplines and kind of say, we need to find a solution to how you can pay without, being in touch with anyone at checkout. So contactless pay, how can we enhance that? How can we support our customers and our businesses? So they started to branch out really quickly to get as much input as they possibly can, and then hope for these wow and aha moments that thankfully came. So it's kind of it's in hyperdrive during these kind of situations, the actual process of innovation. But to me, it's still very much the same process.
Yeah. It's so interesting, contactless. I mean, who would have thought we'd be talking about this? But in a way, it makes it makes a lot of sense, right? And so when we're looking at innovation, 18 months from today, right? Innovation is kind of where we're going. Do you think the contactlessness is going to stay? Is it going to be, are we going to get past all of this? Like when the world kind of gets healthy again, are we I was watching the Australian Open today and this morning, and it was live, and it blew me away because the stands are packed with nobody wearing a mask. And so I kept on trying to go back and forth. I was like, wait, is this today's date? I think it is. And then I was Googling, like, is this really live? Because it was like so bizarre to me. And so will 18 months, what does 18 months from today look like, do you think, from innovation standpoint, when it comes to, because we're working so hard to be contactless. And then all of a sudden, will it just go away one day, overnight?
I don't think it goes away. I think when people understand or realize there's added value in general. So it's not just that it's contactless. Obviously during COVID times, that's what we have to do. But I think in the future, when hopefully we'll see exactly that picture again everywhere where people are around you, people might think, okay, I'm in the shop. I don't actually have to go to the checkout to pay for my clothes or whatever I have in my hand. I can just do that in this very practical way. There's a clear value out there that you might pursue, and irrespective of COVID or not. So I think it will be reevaluated from a different perspective yet again, and then that will be the test of time.
Yeah. I love it. All right, so let's talk about innovation at PayPal. I love the culture at PayPal is so incredible. It's my favorite app, period. I buy most of everything I buy through PayPal, not Amazon. But one of the things you're doing is furthering PayPal's culture by innovation. And so I want to talk about, when you're looking at, promoting it with PayPal employees, and what is someone today, like, what does that look like? Really just, the innovation of culture. Because I think people talk about culture, but they really don't know how to innovate it or grow it or nurture it. And that's what you're doing.
And it's incredibly hard, right? It's like an incredibly hard topic to get into, but yet so relevant in importance. It seems like this incredibly complex construct, which it is, but you have to tackle it somewhere. And I think that's really where we're at. I think first and foremost is we're also trying to demystify what innovation is within the company. We get, loads of people in every year, or people move out or move different roles or whatever. It's important that we're all clear on what we expect from our employees when we talk about innovation, because how are they supposed to answer the call if they don't effectively know what we're all on about? And it's lovely to throw around innovate, do something, be creative. And they're like, yeah, but I think I'm doing that already. So one part is clarifying the vision and the mission, and the other thing is actually unleashing what is within the people. And I wholeheartedly believe that is people don't realize how creative they actually are. People don't realize what their unique skill sets are that bring different things around. And the amount of change agents, when you walk around, and when we're still able to do that in the office or even now, people just do a lot of things naturally without realizing that that would fit into any of these brackets. So it's really consciously telling them and showing them also what impact they're already making is another thing to kind of get them to feel like they're actually part of the machinery. And it's not just for super smart people or for engineers or for whatever stereotype is out there. And then you need to give them equipment, which is much harder to do as well. You need to equip them and give them ways that they can meet, that they can create together, that they know where that route is going to go. And that could be through training programs, that could be through specific platforms we're playing around with. And I mean, it's a long journey still, even for us, it's a 30,000 people company, but I can see it every day. It's happening. There's a movement. It's super exciting.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. So you have 30,000 people in an organization. You're talking about, I'm in Detroit, you're in Ireland, and you are overseeing PayPal's innovation labs as well as the Global Innovation Ambassador Network spread across more than 11 locations. So I don't know how many people that is, but when you're talking about unleashing and making people feel like they matter, that's a lot of people. I mean, that's a big job. And with it is big responsibility. And so how, as a leader, are you able to? I mean, I've gotten to know you, and I'm not surprised that you're doing it and doing it amazingly well. But how do you do it? That's really hard for a lot of people. It would be hard for a lot of people to manage that, to make people, because I think one of the things that most companies don't do well enough is let people know that this little thing that they did had mattered to the big picture of things. And that's what you were talking about, right? And that to me is so important. And but how do you make all 11 locations of all of these people that you're overseeing really feel connected to the vision on a daily basis?
A huge question, and a great question at that. To be honest,
it's a big question.
Yeah. No, absolutely. The thing is that you need to find the people that do share that vision one at a time. So especially, so all of these wonderful individuals that look after the locations, they're the ones that put themselves at the forefront. Often they're the ones like, I'm not actually an expert in innovation, or I'm not. They're all volunteers, by the way, apart from like a very, very few. They're all volunteers, and it's kind of trying to support them in what they want to become and how they can be someone people in their location can follow. Because first of all, not everyone can identify with me necessarily. Also, I'm only one person, only have 24 hours a day. But you have people in locations or regions or whatever you want to call them these days, now that we're all virtual, that someone can identify with. They're known because they used to walk around in a canteen, or they're in a specific job that people work with. And so they have already, and of course the culture, they're obviously embedded in that culture, where they're from that country or not. And that really matters. You have to bring it to a level where people can connect with someone. So, if everything would be driven out of San Jose, our headquarter, I don't know if it would work so well, because people wouldn't, they're like, oh, you're too American, or you're too this, or you're too that. So that wouldn't really help. So I think what we've identified is that we need to have people that are extremely dedicated, bring them up to where they want to grow to in that space, and support them with whatever means is necessary. Support them as, the people embedded in that culture or in that office. And also they can then help others start that following around innovation. Yeah. So it's kind of little regional hubs that you have everywhere, and hopefully eventually we'll have them all covered. So I kind of concentrate a lot on the individuals there, them creating a following, them also then telling me who their top innovators are. So we, start becoming more of a global family and not just regional. Yeah. That's the ultimate aim.
Yeah. Well, I love everything that you do, because I've been a little bit inside the walls of PayPal and how you cultivate people and how you cultivate ideas is really remarkable. And your innovation network focuses on different approaches to problem solving, not only for the PayPal consumers and merchants, but the employees as well. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the power of problem solving, because I think a lot of times, a lot of people have problems with problem solving because it's a lot. I always find it's about sometimes just sitting in a room and looking at all the nitty gritty granular stuff, and then actually making a decision of whatever the next step is. It doesn't have to be the final decision, but whatever the next step is. And so when you talk about problem solving, what's the formula for problem solving and solving a problem?
So I think the number one is to understand whether the problem actually is trying to solve what you set out for. So I think the actual the question around the problem,
right?
It is hugely, it's actually really difficult as well. And I think we need to, sometimes we run out of patience because we feel we already have something in our head that needs to get out there. You know, we want to jump to the solution straight away. That might not fit the problem that it was originally put out. And then on top of that, the actual problem question might not be the one that we try to address in the first place. Yeah. So I think we need to, and this is definitely a culture change. This is as the more people you have it, the more people settle into it, is give yourself the time to understand the customer journey. Don't just assume what your problem is might be someone else's. And that is especially true with, even now, a lot of older people are starting to use the internet because they have to, they're required to. And then I watch my parents who are in their late 60s, and the way they click and think about things is so completely different to everything else I would have ever imagined. So I watched them for an hour, nearly lose all my patience. But in the end, I'm like, I never even thought about it that way. I never even, so consider different age groups, consider different cultures and different, backgrounds, work that in, and then keep it really big at the beginning. Think big, like you always say. And then when everything is out there, then you start seeing themes. Then you can go into the problem creation. What is the problem we're trying to address? And then you have a really good foundation to start with an actual customer journey to iterate around the problem that you're trying to solve. And hopefully, it's a lot about patience, though, I have to say. And I'm not one that would freely say I'm the most patient in the world. It's actually really important to give yourself that time to do it right.
Yeah, that pause, that patience, right? Because it's kind of like you're brainstorming and yet you're almost there, but you just know in your gut, it's just not quite there. And that's, I think, the interesting part about all the minds that are coming up with, the ideas to make our lives easier, right? So selfishly, PayPal makes my life, everything that all of you are doing is making my life so much easier. That's why I love it, because I can buy something. I find myself that if I check out and it's not a PayPal link, I a lot of times don't know if I ultimately end up buying it because it's not as easy to use. I want to talk about the innovation of companies using PayPal, right? So today, companies are using it like I am as portals to online programs and to courses, to buy merchandise and everything of that nature. And so, how does PayPal look to grow into the consumer's mind even more now that online shopping and e-commerce post-COVID is bigger than it's ever been? And so it just, to me, it almost accelerated everything 5 years, right? E-commerce was very popular, but now you have to have an e-commerce platform. Whether you are a retail or a professional service firm, you've got to have that model, and you've got to have the portal like PayPal. And so how is PayPal look at that today as far as targeting and messaging, getting those consumers in the door?
Absolutely. Do you know what? When we say that, if we just look at our general consumer base, I mean, there's so many different variations and types. But what we do, what we realized that we have to start somewhere. We said that before. We work with our merchants a lot. So, our merchants would come because they know their customers best in a specific industry. And this is where we start working with them so they can help us understand their customers, who are ultimately our end customer, really. And the consumers to come in, and that's interaction, and we have that beauty that we see all the angles in a way, but yet, when you really iterate with a merchant, it's incredible how much you learn from them about their consumers in that specific industry, and that's how there's a lot of such interactions. And so we do a lot of that. We actually also, for example, work a lot with governments. So when it's, especially last year, the small businesses, for example, that they needed to go online, a lot of them look towards governments or councils or whatever for support. We always had a lot of relationships with governments and all the likes. And they in turn would come back to us and kind of say, well, this is what we hear, this is what we are seeing. So you need to tap into different elements, not just obviously one merchant at a time, we'll never finish. But so strategically choose specific industries to start getting better at offering the right things to the consumer at the right time.
Yeah, I love it. I want to talk about you now, Maria. You've been at PayPal for almost 12 years. Which I love seeing people, the longevity within a career. So you've seen so many changes from being there over a decade, and you're the global head of innovation at PayPal. So one, I have a question, like, what does it feel like to be the global head of innovation at PayPal? I mean, what a cool career. I mean, to me, whether you are, doesn't matter who you are, to think like, oh, that's how much fun that must be. Like, but what does it feel like to have been there for 12 years and now sit at the global head of innovation at one of the greatest companies in the world?
It's super humbling, to be honest. I'm very grateful. I do feel like I'd like to describe this job as a playground, Maria's playground. Which sounds ridiculous, but it's the most amazing thing. I think to me, what I enjoy the most of this work is that I'm allowed to just trial and error and bring people in that are doing the same thing. So really rally around. So when you work with one team and you love your team, you generally work with your team like 6 months, a year, 2 years, kind of in and around. I get to create my teams every other month if I wanted to, if people are interested in a certain project, if they feel like they're they want to step into that, and it's beautiful because failure is something that we then cherish. We're like, well, that didn't go well, but whatever, and then we just turn it around and say, why didn't it go well? Why did this one have to fail? And sometimes they're resurrected years later, which is really fun. You're like, it's also a moment in time. It's an absolutely amazing role to have in a company that is so open to all of these elements that are innovation. And, and the more people tell me, oh, Maria, we've already done that, can't be done, the more I'm like, well, let's try it again, shall we? Yeah. And just think about it differently. And oddly, most of these people, even though they started with, can't be done, Maria, we've already done this, they turn around and they try again. And that is so energizing. Amazing.
I love that. I love that. It's so great. And I want to talk about, what is it about PayPal that has gotten you to stay there almost 12 years now, right? Because it says a lot about you and it says a lot about the company. And today I feel like so many people are so quick to get a job and then 3 years later move to the next job, and then 3 years later move to the next job. And their mentality is just to hop. And I'm not suggesting that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not judging it. But there is something that when you have, it takes almost 3 years to get used to kind of understand the surroundings a lot of times. And so what is it? What was the alignment like that really, where you said to yourself, hey, I'm staying and this is why?
Yeah, I think sometimes, so for me, it's definitely the learning. So PayPal definitely is not just you get loads of great training programs that are offered to you, but there's just a lot of approachability across the company. So if you ask, you generally receive, or you get to some degree, might not entirely work out how you had planned it. And I think that was always what got me into a next role or another role. So I got continuous learning, and for me, huge. That is just so important that I develop and that people give me a chance. So I think if people see leaders see certain qualities in you, that you are being given opportunities. There might be voluntary, there might not be a whole different career change, but that might well tell you whether you like this or you like that, or whatever it may be. And I think that is a lot of it needs to be self-initiative. So maybe some people are not, they're expecting something to come from a company. I was always happy that the environment was there and I was just doing it and trying it out. Because there's, it's a company. There's only so much people can do for one another. There's only so many structures that can be created. And talking about structures, sometimes they're just not the most effective. So you have to just find different ways that are still compliant, still legal internally, but that still gets you to a place,
Yeah.
So I think that's what they always offer to me. And you reevaluate every 2 years. You want to reevaluate where you stand. Do you still fit into the vision and mission of the company, and vice versa?
Yeah.
And that's really important. And, there have been a good few moments in my career with PayPal as well, where it's like, maybe it's my time to go. Maybe it's the time that we just separate for forever or not. I don't know. But either way, it's a conscious effort and you want to grow with the company. At least I wanted to.
Yeah. Well, you bring up something that's so important. And I hear that I coach people all over the world and I love it. I love what I do. But one of the things I hear all the time is that the reason I left a company, or I'm thinking about leaving a company, is because they don't train. There's no training going on. And so companies, I think, still lack that element of investing in their people and training them. And I think sometimes it's because they don't want to train them subconsciously, because then they know they have to pay them more money because they're raising their value, right? So like if I train you and I make you smarter, you're going to ask me for a raise. And I think there's this backwards thinking of it, right? So versus, hey, invest in your people, they'll make you more money. Because going back to what we're talking about, if you appreciate them, you let them know that they matter, like you're talking about, and you train them, then they're going to come up with that little idea that's going to make $7 million. That little idea is going to make the company millions of dollars. And so I hope through conversations like this, companies raise their awareness, they raise their consciousness on making their people the best they can be. Maybe taking some of those profits and investing it in training their people, because people need it. And I think that's one of the people leave their managers and because they're not trained enough. And usually those go hand in hand. So kudos to you for being a leader that not only believes in your people and in failures and in resurrecting ideas and in making people feel like they matter and connecting them to no matter what they do, to the bigger picture. That is so beautiful to hear and so inspiring. So great job. That's great. That's great. All right. You ready for a quick speed round, Maria?
Sure.
All right.
Okay, sure. Let's go for it.
The best piece of wisdom you've ever received.
Don't ever do again what worked before, or whichever way that goes, because that's the whole principle of reinvention. So let's not do that.
I love that. Your favorite book and why?
Oh, that's an easy one, actually. So it's Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, because to me that was written in the 30s. It was the earliest Black Mirror episode you'll ever get, and it kind of really puts that mirror in front of our faces, saying this is what the future beholds. These are all the wonderful technology elements we can add. It could be super funky and great with self-driving cars, all of the things we're doing right now, by the way. But at the same time, it sends a clear warning: is make sure that you don't forget about the human elements, because the minute we try to be something we're not, we don't care about love, we don't care about kindness, we don't care about all of these elements, it's not going to work, because it's always come back. So it's a beautiful book. Yeah. Kindness
always wins. Kindness always wins. Yeah. Define yourself in one word.
Optimistic.
All right. Finish this sentence. One thing every company in the world needs to do to start being more innovative is
connect with people that don't sit right beside you, or that are in your same department. Just start meeting, doing something, whether you watch a Black Mirror episode on Netflix, which we do occasionally do together or whatever, and start that conversation. Don't just find like-minded, don't just have people that talk the same talk. Find people that do all sorts of different things. It's hilarious. It's super fun. It's super insightful. It's worth everyone's time.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely do not. If you're looking around your boardroom and everybody looks and sounds the same, you better evolve that boardroom.
Very much.
Yeah. I mean, right. Yeah. My last question, because I think this is so important. The number one thing or the number one reason why and you've mentioned this a lot, but I just want to kind of tune into this. Why the importance of making people feel like they matter.
Because that inadvertently, you don't need to give anyone money to make sure that they matter. You don't have to. I think all you have to is acknowledge they exist, that they have something to bring to the table, and that is really all the acknowledgement that you need. Yeah. Because if they don't feel they matter, why would they go out and say, do X, do Y? Yeah. Why would they spend more time with you in a company? Because all of the beautiful things happen when people feel that that they do matter, that there is someone that looks after them, and then they do unleash that power that I was talking about, which is it's just amazing. I've seen people do things that months before that just clearly said, I can never do this. I can never do this.
I agree.
Yeah.
There's nothing more powerful than a thank you or showing gratitude and appreciation. And I agree. In that light, I am really thankful that you took time to talk to me, and I'm really grateful that we got connected through our buddy Michael Tedasco, and so appreciative that you took time to be on the show. And it's funny that I'm sitting here talking to the global head of innovation, and my internet goes out for a minute and a half to begin the interview. So there's a sign there that goes with patience, maybe, and everything isn't always perfect, but you just got to kind of get back in it and pick it back up. But I am really appreciative of you and what all of your team does at PayPal. You are some of the most dynamic people coming up with life-changing ideas that make it so easy for the world to just grow their businesses and purchase online. So thank you for all the ideas that you guys do on a daily basis. Maria, tell people how they can connect with you if they want to, continue a conversation.
Easiest, to be honest with you, is LinkedIn directly. So just check me out on LinkedIn. I'm quite active there, and always also look after it. Everything else, Facebook, Instagram, a bit slower on that front so far. But yeah, there's more room to grow, of course.
All right, Maria, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Think community, thanks so much for tuning in. Pay attention to your culture, pay attention to your innovation, and most importantly, if you want to grow your business, pay attention to your people. So thank you so much for tuning in. Maria, thanks for the lessons for today. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.